are set, the odds are high. Every bet a test who will survive. Chasing stacks, outlast the crowd. Only the strongest left now. Who's ready to win? This is more than gambling. Let's start the show. It's Last Man Standing.
Last Men Standing is live. As always, we are brought to you by Survivor Sweat, Race Oracle, and Splash Sports. If you are new here, we are an NFL Survivor Pool podcast. We talk all things Circa Survivor, the strategy, the drama, the projections, you name it. And you're going to hear thoughts and analysis for every game on the NFL schedule for Week 14. Can't wait to get into it with you guys. But first, my guy over there, Jason, I think you had a better Thanksgiving than me. How you doing over there, brother?
Yeah, I definitely had a better Thanksgiving than you. And all I want to do, Tony, if I'm being honest, is go like this and just not say a word and just be like, how are you, my friend? Like the pre-show, gosh, I could have come in 40 minutes early to talk to you. So for those who don't know, and Tony, I don't want to steal your thunder, and we got a lot of moving parts here on the Last Men podcast tonight, Last Men Standing podcast tonight. But Tony, Thanksgiving was your last day in this year's Circa Survivor Contest. Talk to me.
Yeah, that Thanksgiving slate was brutal. I guess technically it was Black Friday. I had one go down on the Chiefs, one go down on the Eagles. I got to be honest, I felt pretty good about the Eagles on Friday. I really liked the matchup, the fact that the Bears were down, all three starting linebackers and a defensive end. I thought the Eagles were going to bounce back.
That's that's 13B, Mike. 13A. I know he was talking about.
We'll get into the full carnage of the A and B slate, but real quick, my perspective, it was tough, man. It was tough to lose back-to-back days. And here's a little inside baseball that, Jason, you may or may not have even known. So my stepdad was in visiting. He had an entry still alive on the Ravens. So he had a Ravens. I had a Chiefs and Eagles. You'd think one of us with those three favorites would get through, but absolutely not. All four favorites go down, and it was a rough one for me for sure.
Just unbelievable that all four favorites go down. If you watch last week's show or we talked at all, right, you can be sure you uttered phrases such as not really feeling good about any of the favorites, right? But Tony, I have to ask you this. Don't be upset, but you and I on this show both liked Dallas in the game. We have receipts. Yeah. Go rewind and watch the tape. So my question to you is, was it a zigzag situation? I assume you had Dallas available to you. Not suggesting you would go Dallas, but it's really interesting. We talked perhaps about you going with one of your entries. You were pretty convicted was going to be Eagles, but then you thought one would be on the dog and went with Kansas City. So talk us through that a little bit, if you don't mind.
Yeah, well, one, I wanted to save Dallas for Christmas. I thought that was a really important spot to save them for. I did consider going two Eagles. I did consider, briefly the underdogs in these spots. You know what? At the end of the day, we talk about the can you sleep at night factor. Mm-hmm. And me going down with Patrick Mahomes and the Chiefs in that spot, with Steve Spagnuolo in that spot, if I go down with the Cowboys in that spot, I don't know how well I'm sleeping at night saying, what the hell was I thinking going up and trusting the Cowboys, who always disappoint, don't they? Historically, the Cowboys are the least clutch team there is in this spot. And maybe that was my downfall. Maybe I was thinking a little too much about the can you sleep at night factor and not being a little more open-minded. But ultimately went one Chiefs, one Eagles, and that was my demise.
Now that I hear your line of thinking, and if I was on your squad, and I hope to be in 2026, but if I was on your squad, you would have just sold me. Even with what you just said right there, would have sold me. I would have been like, oh God, I'm going to really eliminate myself with Dak Prescott and the Cowboys. So I totally get it. Gosh, a lot of this contest jives with handicapping this league in general, right? So oftentimes I've said, even on past shows we've done together, I feel when Tony's on a side I feel good about myself. So the fact that you seem to lean Dallas too so I was a little surprised you're on KC, but what I will say about that game in particular, and I know what is up, Kel Friendo, I know we got a lot to get to tonight, but at that game in particular, the recency bias with Dallas, you countered that point on our show saying, I don't think that's necessarily true. But I texted you that morning saying, you know what, maybe it is recency bias with us on the Cowboys. And, you were subsequently on the Chiefs, but just bananas. I can't wait to talk to you for hours. I know we're somewhat up against the clock, but great to see you.
Yeah, always, man. And I've had a lot of people reach out. They're like, "Are you okay?" and stuff. I do want to say this: as rough as my Friday was and my Thursday was, it's not even top 3 worst losses in Circa Survivor for me, man. I lost 2 in the final 80 in 2022. When I lost on Thanksgiving in 2021, there was 120 people left. When I lost, there was 30 or something like that. So I've had it rough. I've built up a little scar tissue, and yeah, we're ready to transition out of this thing.
So another question I want to ask you, because there have
Yeah.
been times you've brought strategy in the contest up in certain spots. For example, even week 1, playing both teams on the Friday night game because you know he can re-enter on Saturday.
Mm,
Knowing that you had a couple entries,
yeah.
I'm curious if it even crossed your mind to just try to get one through. I'm not sure what it crossed mine.
Everything crosses your mind because you want to think about all the potential options and make sure you don't have any blind spots. It's a great question. Obviously, I wish I had done that. I wish I had done, one Chiefs, one Cowboys, or one Eagles, one Bears. That was the move for me in that situation. That was a realistic move that could have got me by. It's tough to do that, to essentially light a $20,000+ entry on fire at that point. Because if you do that, and let's say all 4 favorites advance, you feel like an idiot. You just threw away a bunch of money. The reason why it was kind of tempting, though, is because I really like my path a lot, and a lot of people do. Weeks 13 to the end. So if you think of it in that way, hey, if you can just get one through and you like your path the rest of the way as much as you say you do, Tony, maybe that split option makes some sense. But it's one of those things where if you do the split and the favorites win, you feel like a dumbass. And if all the underdogs win as they did in this case, you feel really good. And spoiler alert, we've got a guest coming up here in about 5 minutes who took a dog and is still alive in Circa Survivor. Can't wait to talk to her.
Can't wait to hear that story. And you've done a lot of shows at VSEN and otherwise, and you've heard different thoughts about. We were even talking last week, and you were asked, I think, by Gil Alexander, I hope I'm getting the name right of the guy who asked you the question, just about how many entries going to win this thing, right? Oh, is this going to be? And you said, if it's a chalky Thanksgiving, maybe you have a lot of winners, but it most certainly was not a chalky Thanksgiving. It's just bananas to me. This week looked so different when it was upon us than it did to it,
Absolutely. I mean, if we could have known week 1 that the Thanksgiving was going to be this crazy, I mean, it would have changed everything. But of course, we can't forecast it that far out. I do want to recap before we get to our guest.
Yes, please.
In detail here, the carnage that we're talking about. So 13B, 4 people lost with the Rams. 13A, this Thanksgiving slate, all 4 favorites go down. Jason, 94.3% of the field was eliminated.
Dude, what, 900 down to 49 on Thanksgiving?
Slate. And as Survivor Atlas tweeted out earlier today, this was, percentage-wise, the most carnage-filled week. Look at this. In Circa Survivor history, 94.3%.
Wow.
We've never even gone over 85 before.
Back-to-back years, top 2 on the board. Wow.
Unbelievable. The carnage that we're talking about here. So now
and
we're
Grandissimo gone over.
Yes, Grandissimo's done too. 6 teams, or 6 people, I guess you could say, split. So a little more than $1 million each for them. Excited for those folks. Congratulations.
Half were on Ravens, half were on Eagles. Good night, ladies and gentlemen.
And Jason, I don't know if you were aware of this or not, but Durbafy, who you met earlier this season, he was on the Dream Team. Baxter, who was on our show earlier this season, was on the Dream Team. So very excited for those guys.
Durbafy, if you're watching, that's my zigzag guy. I bet he's telling himself, I can't believe I didn't play a dog on Thanksgiving and win the whole 6.9.
I'm sure those guys are plenty happy though, being the inaugural, the first ever Grandissimo champion. Some pretty good stuff.
Yeah. Oh, congrats. No doubt.
No doubt about it. So yeah, we're down to 45 now in the fight for $18.72 million. The excitement, Jason. Can you imagine what these folks are going through at the grocery store? You go to swipe your card at the grocery store. Hey, how's your day going? When I was in a similar situation, Circa Survivor, Circa Survivor, Circa Survivor. It's all I could think about. You catch up with a friend. Hey, Tony, how you been? We haven't talked in 6 months. How you doing? All I want to talk about is Circa Survivor. I would imagine the rest of these 45 people are obsessed over the next few decisions that they've got to make in this thing, knowing that there's $18.72 million on the line. And the last thing I'll say, Jason, not only is there $18.72 million on the line, but now that the field is smaller, there's a realistic chance one person could take it all. Or maybe you're only splitting with one other person and you're getting 9 million for yourself. Things just got a lot more exciting for those 45 people still left.
Oh, and the marketplace, I'm sure, lighting up, all sorts of dollars and potential over there. You know, it really is interesting, that Thanksgiving holiday. And Tony, I'm sure you had moments sitting there laughing, almost saying, wow, if I get through this Thanksgiving holiday, which is certainly something you've done in the past and could have happened, you know, the field, right? You talked in the past, maybe privately, about playing against this field, right? And the way we're looking at this field of 45, you know, we got 1 of 45 on tonight's show. I mean, it's bananas, bro.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. Without further ado, I want to go ahead and bring in Morgan Miller, because Morgan is one of the 45 that's still alive in Circa Survivor. You can see how big she's smiling because she's still alive in this fight for $18.72 million. Morgan, my first question for you is, how are you doing? And in this society, we say, how you doing? You just say good. I really want to know what's going on in your brain right now. How are you feeling? How are the emotions? What are you thinking about these days?
My brain is fried. Thanksgiving was crazy. And we, like you said, we were on an underdog. So we took the Cowboys and we had Philly and Kansas City available. So it was not a forced pick. And I was the one that wanted that. And so me and my dad buy our entries together and do this together every year. And I was the one that wanted the Cowboys and I had to push to take them. So I was not doing well on Thursday because I was like, if we don't win this, I'm going to feel terrible. But worked out.
Wow. I have so many questions here. All right. First of all, the thought process to land on the Cowboys. How did you get there? How did you get comfortable with that team? And I see you wearing a Cowboys jersey. Are you a Cowboys fan or did you get that after the fact?
I'm a massive Cowboys fan. So I am a huge Cowboys fan. I'm also a very superstitious person. And in the years I've done this tournament, I've never picked the Cowboys and I've never picked a team against the Cowboys.
Wow.
And I knew going into this that I was going to have to pick on that game. Like I knew after looking at everything, I was going to have to pick on this. And very similar to how you said sleeping at night, I sat there and I said, this is going to be a close game. This is, you know, Dallas's offense looks amazing. And I said their defense has looked better. However, the last couple teams, like having a great showing with the defense against the Raiders doesn't feel as amazing. So I'm like, I hope we can hold that out. And I was a little nervous about it, but I told myself at the end of the day, if I had to finally make a pick on the Cowboys or against the Cowboys, it was going to be with my team. And I would not have been able to sleep with myself if the Cowboys won, my team won, and I was on the other side.
Oh, my goodness. Real quick, Jason, let me jump in here if you don't mind. Were you watching the game with your dad? And if not, tell me about that conversation afterwards, phone call afterwards. I'd imagine he's like, great freaking pick. I'm glad I trusted you. Tell me about that dialogue afterwards.
Yeah. So my dad was here because it was Thanksgiving and we host every year. And
incredible.
It was intense, especially because on the first drive that the Cowboys scored, my dad was sitting in a certain spot. And then the first time they made Kansas City punt, he was like back in the middle of the hallway. So every time then that they were on defense, he was like, I got to go back in the hallway. If I don't go back in the hallway, they're going to score. And it was so intense. He was freaking out the entire time. And he kept looking at me and he's like, you're not sweating enough. You're not freaking out enough. And I couldn't tell him that I was freaking out on the inside because I was. And it worked out very well. And then we were freaking out and so excited. And we were talking about the next day, which we had an entry. So we had 2 left before. We had an entry on Philly on the other one. But we didn't have Dallas available on that card. So we went with Philly on that one. And he originally wanted to put both on Philly, which now I'm very glad we did not do.
Yeah.
And when we were sitting there, him and I decided, I was like, I looked at him and I said, you know what? It's not that I don't want to get 2 entries through, but I looked at him and I said, I kind of hope Philly loses.
Yep.
Which is
then
really
90% of the remaining field was on the Eagles. So you lose 50% equity, but 90% of the field is eliminated. That makes sense to me.
Yeah, even early on when Tennessee won their lone football game and I had one of my 4 entries on Arizona, I was like, oh, maybe this isn't the worst thing. So I have to ask you as a Cowboys fan, first of all, I think you had a real shot, but this is a Survivor show. So I often say I'm a Patriots fan, right? I certainly watch the Patriots closer than any other team. So for you, was there conviction? Because Tony and I liked Dallas too, despite him wearing his Kansas City red today. Tony, sorry, I love you. But so was there conviction for you because you've been watching this team and really believed in what they were going to do?
Yes, yeah, 100%. And I've always said, and this is because I'm a super fan, we win our best games against really good teams. I'm telling you, I would never pick Dallas against Tennessee, for example. Like that would not be, for some reason we tend to show up and play better than the team that we're playing, but not much. So if we're playing Tennessee, we're probably going to be within 3 points of them, and it's going to frustrate me because I am a lifelong Dallas fan, so I've been through the frustration moments too. And I was like, if I'm going to bet on them, it's going to be against a good team like the Kansas City Chiefs.
So your dad was the champion the first year of this Circa Survivor Contest. Is that accurate?
He was, yes.
So talk to me a little bit about that. How many entries were you involved? That wasn't that long ago.
I was not, because it was the first year. It was the inaugural year. Him and his really good friend did it together. And I actually remember I went down with him in January after he had won and helped it, like went when he picked up his big check and like the picture and did all that stuff. And I remember looking at him then and I was like, I want to do this. Like, this is something I want to do. This will be so fun. And every year I've just gotten more and more involved in it. So last year, him and I made it to the final week, week 18, which we went down. We were on the Falcons, so we lost in overtime. But it was a great experience. I flew out for the last week. I had to go do a hedge bet, and Russ and Mike actually bought in on a portion of our entry that year. So I got to meet Russ and Mike in person, and that was awesome. And we had a great time there, except for the fact that the Falcons lost. That was the moment, like you're talking about. I was crushed. I could taste it. We were so close. And then this year this is the first year that I was like, I want to have multiple entries. I want to, really be in this as much as I can.
Incredible. All right, I got to go back to that decision. I got to go back to that epic decision to take the Cowboys. You and your dad are talking about this short week. You got a short period of time. You got a couple days to make this decision. Was there a lot of back and forth? Was he sort of giving you counter arguments? Were you guys kind of on the same page most of the way? I know you said it was mostly your decision to take the Cowboys, but talk to me about that dialogue leading up to finally hitting that button.
We spent hours going like back and forth and on calls. And I remember we were sitting there, like we had like 10 minutes until our pick had to be in for our proxy. And we're sitting there and I'm just like, no, this is what we have to do. And I remember he was sitting there, he put the pick in and he was sitting there and he's like, okay, he's like, there's 20 seconds left. I can still change it to Philly. Do you want me to change it to Philly? I can still change it to Philly. And I'm like, don't do it. Don't you do it.
Oh my, that's like the greatest story ever. That's unbelievable.
Incredible.
And good for you and your dad. Happy Thanksgiving, Pop. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Enjoy watching tomorrow, and I'm sure for you, right? It's like, let's go Bears a little bit if I'm you, you know what I mean? Like, regardless of your equity in the contest,
Wow.
Yes. Yeah.
All right, Morgan, looking ahead.
I told him, he was like, I don't like to root for any of my entries to lose. And I said, can I root for a tie then? Because that would have been the ultimate. That would have been the ultimate. Yeah,
that would have been, wow. I'll just imagine that. Morgan, looking ahead, I'm not going to ask you who you're taking next week because I don't want you to reveal your hand or share any secrets or anything like that since the field is so small at this point. But can you talk to me in general about this week and just kind of how you feel going into it? And if it's sort of a difficult decision week for you, the team that you're on, is it a team that you've had in mind for a while? Just talk to me in general.
I will truly tell you, I do not know what team I'm going to be on yet. I'm also, I think I said this, I'm superstitious. I have a rule. I don't look ahead. I will not look at future weeks other than like making sure I'm not touching teams for holidays or certain things like that. I don't look ahead a lot. And I have a rule. I don't start looking at my picks until Tuesday. Even if I'm not on the Monday night team, I do not look at them until Tuesday. So I just started kind of diving in, and what I do is on Tuesday, I usually I try to like narrow my list down to like my top 5 teams that I'd be interested in. And sometimes there aren't 5 teams I'm that interested in, but I try to build it up there. So if I feel like I need to go to a different spot or, zig or zag or whatever I need to do, I have those options. And then I start my studying. I start watching my videos. I start looking into everything. And I have a tendency I like to play really good defenses. I don't like playing bad defenses. So that tends to be an area that I study a lot, like defensive players that are out, how I think that defense is going to perform that week. I love home teams. Obviously I can't always be on home teams, but I do love to be on home teams with a good defense. That's usually my preference. So I don't know who I'm picking yet. I do a lot of research on Tuesdays and Wednesdays. And then on Friday night, usually my dad and I have our first lengthy conversation about who we're going to pick. And then Saturday morning, we sit in and we'll usually lock in on what we want to do. Obviously, like Tuesday, I'll take a quick look at Thursday, but honestly, I hate Thursday games. I do not
I agree.
I don't like touching a Thursday game. So for me, it's not like really much of a conversation because I hate picking on those.
So this is my dream. Sorry, Tony, to cut you off.
you're
I'm
good.
a girl. I have 2 young daughters. My oldest daughter just turned 12 and she's starting to watch the Patriots. Like, this is my dream for you and your dad to have this experience together in this life that is ours is incredible in and of itself. Is it not?
It is. It's amazing. And honestly, I'm the youngest, and my brother's 18 months older than me, cannot stand sports. Cannot stand football, like doesn't watch it, doesn't follow it at all. And so I always laugh because I was the youngest and none of my older siblings were into this with my dad, that he looked at me and was like, you're going to be into this with me. You're going to watch sports with me. So ever since I was a little kid, I mean, him and I went to games together. We're season ticket holders. I'm up in Michigan. So we have season ticket holders for the Detroit Tigers. Like, we watch baseball together. We watch all our football together. And he's like, this is going to be our thing together. And I love it. I am such a junkie for it.
Love it. Morgan, you mentioned that run last year. You get to week 18, losing overtime. You literally can't get any farther in Circa Survivor without winning by losing in week 18. Last year, I lost in week 17. So I know a little bit of that feeling, although yours is a little worse a week later. Do you feel like that deep run that you made last year has prepared you to make a deep run and hopefully get all the way to the end this season?
I hope so. I think it's definitely something that you learn from every week in this. You learn from every single week that you do it. I will say it taught me that I'm never picking the Falcons again. And they've been, how many people have they knocked out this year?
Yeah.
Which, there's some Falcon fans out there that are going to hate me for saying
cut that up.
Yeah.
No, cut that up.
After that moment in Vegas when they lost for me, I was like, never again. I'm not doing this. So they're on my list. But I will say, I think it does prepare you a lot. And honestly, the hard part is when you get to those very end weeks, like going into week 18, there were other games that we liked. There were other games that we talked about. And this is a weird thing to think about, but we wanted to hedge. We wanted money at the end of this. And so for us, it was by far the best hedge potential for us. They were the biggest favorite we really had left, which meant that we had the best opportunity to put a good amount of money on the other side and walk away happy either way, which we don't really think about a lot at like this stage in the competition. And it is interesting to see how that affects things, because I do wonder sometimes if I wouldn't have been thinking about that had I gone in there with a different pick.
Oh, that's so fascinating, because we think about who we like. We think about who other people are going to be on, right? Because I'll win more money if a big chunk loses and I'm on an island. But then that hedge piece, and for people out there who aren't familiar with this, if a team is a bigger favorite, it's going to be a lot easier to hedge because the underdog is going to be a bigger plus money number. Like, I look at a team right now like the Bills week 18, and I don't know if you have them available or not, but they're a team that's like projected to be a 2-touchdown favorite against the Jets. That's the dream team to have week 18 from a hedge perspective, at least. Bills
unless they have nothing to play for and they're completely locked into the 5 seed.
Good point. Very, very good point. Very good point for sure. Yeah. Man, this is so great to talk to you. I love that you're a Cowboys fan and you went with the Cowboys. So many times that bites sports bettors. Betting on their team is like the stereotypical move that hurts sports bettors and makes them lose money. In your case, you fired away on the Cowboys and they come through for you. Absolutely incredible.
Yeah, like I said, I've never done it before because I was like, I do not want my team to ever be what knocks me out of this. But when your choice is betting against them or betting on them, I feel like you have to go. I mean, I feel like you would do the same thing with the Patriots, right? You'd be like, if I had to do one or the other, I don't know. I just want to go with my team at the end of the day.
I just love it. And, and final thing for me, what I'll say, hearing you talk about not looking ahead, right? Listen to me. Oh, I'm saving this team for Thanksgiving. I didn't make it to fucking November, but I'm going to sit here. I'm going to tell you who I'm going to save for Thanksgiving. I'm also going to tell you who I'm going to save for Christmas. So what I'll say, one of the things I learned this year with my 4 entries is, I'm not going to be looking ahead, puffing out my chest. My brother, my brother John, I know you're a UFC fan, right? My brother loves just, we're playing the Chargers week 3 like we're riding a fucking surfboard. So I'm telling you, I learned a lot tonight talking to you. Even I'm taking notes. So good for you.
Well, thanks. I appreciate that. And honestly, this is the hardest competition. Like, it's hard because you don't, like I said, I don't like to look ahead, but also you kind of have to have an eye on certain things, and it's not easy. And I will say I'm taking a lot of credit for the Cowboys pick, but last week, the week before Thanksgiving, we picked the Ravens, and I did not want to because I wanted to have the Ravens on one entry and Philly on the other entry for Thanksgiving. But I was worried that I wasn't happy with the other choices. And my dad said, let's just burn the Ravens and we'll either put both on Philly or figure something else out for Thanksgiving. And I am really glad he did that because I don't know that I would have pushed for the Cowboys as much if I would have had the Ravens.
Wow.
I appreciate the honesty. That's great.
Yeah. And this is such a great example of the butterfly effect of these survivor pools. One thing that you do one week all of a sudden impacts things later. If you had taken the Ravens that week, you might not have been on Dallas on Thanksgiving. Incredible.
And I'll say too, being willing to ride your dad's voice in one week and then the next week ride your voice. I think that's a great thing. There is certainly, Tony can understand you balance things out I want to be Tony's partner desperately, right? I can't imagine some of the conversations. You're going to hate me next year.
Can I put my hat in the ring too? I want
100%.
to.
I feel like we got a third co-host. I mean, you belong.
I think your budget will be a little bigger if you can take this thing home, Morgan. So I'll certainly be rooting for you. If you're out there, if you're knocked out of Circa Survivor and you're looking for someone to root for, Morgan got to week 18 and lost in overtime last season and has a chance at a redemption story here. Such a cool story. We're so glad that you came on the show to talk with us today. Best of luck. We will absolutely be rooting for you, Morgan.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Absolutely. Take care. What an incredible story. What an incredible story. Cowboys fan takes the Cowboys as an underdog with favorites available, Jason. With favorites available in her pocket on that entry. Not only does she survive with Dallas, but now she's got Philadelphia in her pocket to use against maybe the Raiders later or whoever she wants. Absolutely great spot that she's in. I don't want to say too much and jinx her, but I'm excited for her.
And she still has the Chiefs. I
Yep.
do believe they're going to be playing meaningful football games.
How about week 16 against the Titans? That's a pretty nice spot for the Chiefs if you don't need them on Christmas. My goodness gracious.
I know we probably got another guest backed up here, Tony, but I just want to say to you, right? Last year we met. I wasn't in this contest and I was so interested in it through you. This year I had 4 entries. I was eliminated week 8, 9, whatever the fuck it was, but I've been following it through you, right? And so I get the sense from you as I see you nod your head that you're into this thing too. I love your attitude despite being out. And I know it wasn't your worst beat of all time, but it's like, we both still have plenty of juice for this contest. And when we do win it, the roof's going to explode. And they asked Tony, they're like, Tony, do you want to leave? He's like, fuck no, I'm not going anywhere.
Jason's referring to, so I went on to Follow the Money during the Eagles game for a 10-minute segment while the Eagles were struggling against the Bears. So that segment is on our Twitter if you want to check it out. But without further ado, I want to go ahead and bring in our next guest. I'm really excited to talk to John Murray. He's the Vice President of Race and Sports at Westgate, Las Vegas. You might recognize his face from a little show he does over at Wager Talk that he co-hosts with Kelly in Vegas. That's called Kelly and Murray. Welcome to the show, John. How you doing, brother?
What's going on, guys? How you doing today?
We're doing good, man. So glad to have you. One of the reasons I wanted to come on is because I love your Survivor contest that you guys started this year, $5,000 entry. I was in it, and I lost again with the Packers against the Browns very early on. But it was new for you guys this year, so I want to talk to you first about that contest, how you think it's gone so far. Correct me if I'm wrong. I think there's 8 people left at this point.
How could the Browns beat the Packers in Green Bay? That is impossible. That actually happened? No, it didn't. Come on. No.
Seriously.
Yeah.
Seriously.
I thought it was pretty good. We had 111 people in it. It's a $5,000 buy-in. It's a tough space to compete in, guys. You know, it's not just the contest here in Las Vegas. There are survivors.
I think we lost your audio, John. Can you still hear us? John, I think we lost your. Oh, there we go.
Now we got him.
She was going on and on.
For the last 15 seconds or so, brother.
Oh, okay. Sorry about that, guys. No, Kelly was talking about a contest she does with Splash Sports, or she's in like 1,000 of them. And I can't even track them all. I don't know what the hell she's talking about. And I was like, this is terrible content for our show. I didn't even know what you're talking about. Let's just talk about like the main survivors. There's so many of them. It's tough to compete for people's dollar. I think this one's good. It's a 5K buy-in. We don't do the Thanksgiving and Christmas weeks. And I don't think Circa did their first year either. I think that they added that because too many people were making it to the end, I believe, is why they did that. But we didn't do that. And I think what was interesting was we didn't have a single person get knocked out last week. Nobody was on Philly or Baltimore because they weren't saving Philly or Baltimore for Thanksgiving.
Yeah.
And then nobody had the Rams because I think they had all used the Rams. I think. I'd have to go back and look at that. But we didn't have a single person go out. We were 8 for 8. 5 of the 8 had the Chargers against the Raiders. But they all made it to Week 14, which I thought that was pretty interesting.
John, do you see any potential changes for this contest? You alluded to how Circa has, added that Thanksgiving element once a bunch of people signed up. Do you think the contest that you roll out next year will be a carbon copy of this year, or might there be some tweaks?
I'd rather not change it, you guys. I think one of the things that made the Super Contest so popular, this property has been running the Super Contest since the 1980s. And I think one of the reasons it became so popular is because everybody knew what it was every year. If you start changing it every year, I think it gets a little bit confusing. I'd rather not change it. That's not official yet. It's not exclusively my decision either. But I'd like to give this contest a few years to grow because I do think it's got some potential. It's simple. People like Survivor. I like Survivor because when I get knocked out, then I'm done. And I don't have to sit there and try to find 5 games every freaking week. You know what I mean? Like I have any idea what the hell is going to happen, which I don't. When I get knocked out of Survivor, it's like, oh, thank God, it's over. I was in Circa Survivor, and my final entry, I had several, and my final one that got knocked out was apparently Arizona lost to Tennessee at home. That was something that happened this season, and
that was real life.
But you know what? When you go back and look at the full season, I know, guys, that I would have been on Philly or Baltimore last week. Probably Philly, if I'm being honest.
Yeah.
I would not have had the stones to play one of those dogs, and I would have been knocked out anyway. Even that's assuming I had somehow made it from Week 5 to Thanksgiving, which I'm sure I wouldn't have. But I wouldn't still be in it. So congratulations to everybody that still is, because that's pretty impressive.
Yeah, 45 left.
Tony, you even talked about last week, the Packers. You liked the Packers. I leaned that way as well. But you said if you had multiple entries, maybe you'd find a spot there. I'm just curious, John, where are you from? I assume you're Vegas-based now. Tell us your story a little bit.
Yeah, I live in Las Vegas. I moved here in 2007. I'm from McLean, Virginia. I went to West Virginia University. Can you say this? I was a bookie my freshman year. Are people allowed to say that? I don't know. Yes. But you know what? It was so much work. Being a bookie is a lot of work, man. So, we stopped doing that. Maybe I shouldn't use the word bookie. I was recreationally taking wagers from people.
There you go.
We stopped doing it after the first year because it was too much work. And then after I graduated from college, I tried to get my partner, to move here with me. I think that his mom nixed it. He would never admit that. I don't think his mom let him. Honestly, I thought I was going to move out here and party for a few years and then move back home and get a real job. That's really truly what I thought. I was 23 years old at that time, and I've been lucky. I've managed to work my way through a number of jobs in the industry.
Nice. And correct me if I'm wrong, you were a ticket writer at Westgate and kind of moved your way up into this VP position now.
It was called the Hilton back then. It was called the Hilton Superbook. I was a ticket writer that season when New England went 18-0. And nobody remembers this now because the Giants won the Super Bowl, but Dallas was almost as dominant on the NFC side. Dallas was blowing everybody out every week. They were covering every week. The public had a really good year that year because all you had to do was just bet Dallas and New England. And we thought that Dallas and New England were on a collision course for the Super Bowl. And then the Giants beat them. And then, of course, they ended up winning the Super Bowl. But that was the year that I wrote tickets here. It was then called the Hilton.
Gotcha. Good stuff. And, John, I want to give you an opportunity. Tell us about your college football contest because I know that was new this year as well.
Yeah, that one I was happy with that one, guys. We had a $500 buy-in, 7 sides a week. We did it all
Wow.
14 weeks, including that week that unfortunately they call it week 0, I guess, when no when they well, no, I guess that's not week 0. Which one's week 0? Is Labor Day week 0 or is it just the bullshit games before Labor Day?
I get
I
them
don't know.
confused too, to be
We
honest. Yeah,
started
yeah.
it that weekend when Notre Dame played Miami, we started it. So it was the week
Gotcha. Okay.
before the NFL season started. The
Nice.
winner, I believe, got $216,000 out of that contest. And I think that one's got a chance to grow. I really do, because I don't think anybody else in town is running a big college contest. I know there's nobody else that has a college contest you can submit on your app, which really is a game changer. Let's
Yep.
see how that one does. When we first announced it, people were like, "Oh, you should pay more places, or you should do in-season prizes." And I was like, "Guys, let me see how many people sign up first. Okay, let's just see. Let's see what our prize pool is. We're very open to making some changes there, but I wanted to see how many people were in it. I wanted to see what kind of a prize pool we were working with. We'll see. We may make some tweaks there next year. I don't know yet.
All
That
right.
contest is really interesting. Forgive my ignorance. So week 0, you have 7 teams. You know, let's say you use Miami, you cannot use them the rest of the way,
Well,
right? Is it
this is not a survivor contest. This is an
okay?
against the spread contest.
Ah,
So think
gotcha.
of it. Think of it like the super contest.
Yeah, gotcha.
Think of it like the super
Gotcha.
contest. You're just picking 7 games against the spread. I thought a college contest, to your point, a college survivor contest would have been cool.
Mm.
And my show with Kelly sponsored one on Splash Sports in 24, and apparently no underdogs ever win in college football because like every person in the contest made it to the end, including me. There was like 400 people that got to the end. So we didn't
And
do
that's
that. We
why I sort of wasn't necessarily surprised if it was 7 sides a week. Maybe it
Yeah.
is where you have a couple sides a
Mm.
week. So what's your role
Yeah.
there? Like, what's your job? What's your day-to-day life like? What's your life like on Sundays during the NFL season?
Yeah, well, I'm the vice president of race and sports, so I don't. To be honest, I don't get to. I don't. I'm not as involved with the risk as I used to be when I was a manager. I mean, I'm still. Now I mostly just go in there to yell at the guys when they make a mistake. You know what I mean? Like, why did you let that guy bet so much? I wait till the game ends. You know? Oh, great, great. You know, it's more. It's more stuff like that. I mean, I'm a huge fan of the UFC. So I do get involved in the UFC odds.
I
I
love
will
it.
give
Love
my
it.
2 cents on that. And I certainly talk to the guys about the way we book big games, big football
Mm.
games, the Super Bowl, obviously. But day to day, I don't get to do as much of that as I used to. It's more on the operations side, customer service side, dealing with the various departments around here. It's just like any other job, you got to deal with like compliance and marketing and finance. It's
Yeah.
pretty tough. It's not easy. It's not
Wear a
No,
easy.
lot
I
of
hear
hats,
you.
right?
Yeah, you know how it is. But it's
John, I
fun.
want
It's
to
great.
ask.
I'm very lucky to have this job. I feel very lucky, and it's good for me too because I just like yelling at people. So when I can go every day we lose on something, and I can just go back there and be like, "Nice work," way to go. So that's
Love
a
it.
good role. That fits me. That fits my personality.
Love it.
So you like the UFC, right? And
Hmm.
so my twin brother
Big time.
John is a commentator. I'm prohibited from betting on the UFC, which is probably a good thing. Like, are you pretty good at handicapping the UFC? Because not as easy as people think. All right, there he is.
No, it's
Um,
it's not easy at all. I when I say that I'm a UFC fan, let me specify. I'm a UFC fan. I love going to the fights. I'll be at T-Mobile on Saturday night. I usually like to travel to 1 or 2 events a year
Love it.
in other cities, but betting the UFC is very difficult, and I don't think people even really understand how big UFC betting has become.
Mm.
There are Saturdays, not during college football, guys, but the rest of the year, UFC is our biggest thing of the day on a Saturday, especially in the
Wow.
summer. And
It's
it's a
unbelievable.
big piece of our handle. It'll be big for us this Saturday. I saw the card they announced for January 24th, and I've already given my team here a big heads up. We're going to have UFC 324, and then Sundays, the AFC NFC championship games.
Mm.
That's going to be a monster weekend. UFC is a big deal. And
It's a
Yeah.
can I
monster.
pick the winners in the UFC? No, come on. I don't know. No, I do enjoy betting on it though. I love going to the fights.
Isn't going to the live event nothing like it? And I'm flying. My daughter's birthday is this Saturday. Yes. She turns 9. I'm gonna land with like 4 or 5 fights to go. So get in the building even for the last couple. But yeah, it's nothing like going to a live event. I feel like Tony doesn't mess with the UFC. I feel like we got to get him to a live event. I think that would change everything.
You will when you go, because when I moved here from Virginia, like I told you guys, I didn't know anything about the UFC. I knew nothing about it. I barely even heard of it. I had a friend who got me into watching it. And then in the summer of 2010, we went to see Shane Carwin against Brock Lesnar at the MGM Grand. It was awesome. And from that moment on, 15 and a half years ago, I was like, when there's a big fight, we're going. We were at every McGregor fight. We were at all those. And those are some of the most incredible sporting events I've ever been to. It's awesome, man. And it's a big part of our business too.
I'm sure, but my brother says there's 15 Super Bowls every year in this country, right? The 14 UFC pay-per-views and the actual Super Bowl, because it really these events, Tony. It sounds like hyperbole, but they do something special in that building. They do.
They do a great job. They do a great job, and when they have the really big fights, like when John Jones fights, or like in the old days with Conor McGregor. I'm a big fan of Paddy Pimblett. He's fighting next month, so I think that's going to be a lot of fun. So
me too.
Go to 324, Tony. The one Saturday is going to be cool, but the one next month, off the charts.
That's here in Vegas, 324.
It's here in Vegas, January 24th.
All right.
We'll see what we can do, Mr. Farmer.
All right. I think
the survivors will be over by then anyway, man. There won't be any survivor. There's nothing to survive. Just go to the UFC fights, man.
John, my last question for you. You mentioned the number of people who signed up for your college football contest and your survivor pool contest. Do you guys have any internal goals, or just you personally? Like, what's a number that you'd like to see those 2 contests be at for next season?
Well, let me just tell you guys this. I was not happy with some of the VSIN guys. They were speculating on how many entries we'd get before, like in the summer, and they're on their shows. Oh, I think they're going to get 5,000 people in it. I'm like, have you guys ever heard of setting a low bar and then going over the bar? I hope none of my bosses heard that. Don't say that. I'll tell you guys, what I'd like to do next year in Survivor is get 200 people. That's a $1 million prize pool. That I think that's attainable with good word of mouth. Yep. College, I just want to see it grow year over year. I don't have a specific number in mind, because no matter how much I love college football, but no matter how much we love college football, it's never going to be as popular as the NFL.
Yeah,
and it's hard to set. It's hard to know exactly what the response will be, but the word of mouth and the year over year building, that's what I'm looking for.
Well, let's put out the biggest word ever. Did anybody watch the games on Thanksgiving? Was anybody eliminated? Well, see the Westgate, because you ain't going to deal with that.
No one was eliminated. I don't think anybody used those games. So I think all of our guys were just sitting around laughing at the Circa people.
Yeah.
That was a crazy day. I did. I would have used Philadelphia though, guys.
Yeah, that's what I went down with.
I had it in my mind early in the year, because I map it out. I know it's fun to map it out. It's fun to talk about it.
Yeah.
And I was thinking Philadelphia would beat Chicago. And I think Philadelphia came into that game. No, they weren't off a loss, but I would have played Philadelphia. I would have lost with Philadelphia. So.
You know what's the worst for me, for someone who did go down with Philadelphia and Circa Survivor? Going on Twitter and seeing all the highlights of Jalen Hurts missing wide open receivers.
Yes.
You know how painful that is? Knowing that not only did my team go, but there were opportunities that were missed. And he just didn't even look to the right side of the field. Oh.
Did you consider any kind of like selling of your entry or because I know that's very popular now. Was that something you thought about doing?
I thought about it this season and I didn't. And of course I wish I did. In the years past, I had, like last year when there was all that carnage in Circa Survivor, I sold when it had an implied value of 22,000, I sold 90% for 30,000. I was really happy with that.
Oh, wow.
My stepdad sold a percentage of his entry on the Survivor Sweat marketplace. But this season, I had some hedge bets at the end and some panic hedge bets when the Eagles were losing. But other than that, I did not make any sales this year.
You were panic hedging while you were on the air with Mitch and Paulie. Did the guys know about that?
Before and after that segment, there was plenty of panics. But check this out. So I got invited on the show. And at the time, I'm like, things are going so terribly in the book. I might as well change things up a little bit and go on the show for this 10-minute segment. And as I'm waiting to go into the studio, I see that touchdown from A.J. Brown. And I'm like, we got some hope here. So then I go in the studio. Some good things happened. Eagles get a turnover, but then it all turned to shit. It was rough. It was rough.
I was to be honest with you guys, I was at Del Mar Racetrack that day. I was losing money as well. I was also losing money, but I didn't really see any of the game. And I read I got some texts from some people, and I think I wrote somebody back like, "Are you telling me the Bears won the game in Florida?" Because all I read in the build up to that game was how many injuries Chicago had on defense.
Yep. We talked about it on the show.
Philadelphia was going to win easily, to be honest with you. So
off a loss too, John. I mean, off a loss. I thought Philadelphia was going to come in angry and pissed. You know who might have been most pissed though? I wonder if there was a disrespect factor that the Bears listened for those 4 days leading up to the game about how they were frauds, about how they've been lucky this year. And they knew that there was a 7-point spread in this game, even though they had the same record as the Eagles. I wonder if that motivated the Bears a little bit more in that game.
One thing I have learned over the years in the NFL, betting the NFL, and it's the only piece of advice I can give people because I'm not good at it, is don't keep chasing. So, like, don't say, oh, these guys are overrated. I'm going to go against them. I'm going to go against them again and again and again and again. I see people doing that with New England. And I've seen people doing that against Chicago, and it's almost, it gets to a point. It's like, what are you trying to prove now? You've lost 6 times in a row. When you finally win, are you going to be like, look, see? It's like, well, now you're 1-6.
Good
Way
point.
to go. Sometimes you just have to go, this team is better than I thought. I didn't think Chicago was going to be good this year, but you got to go, these guys are better than I thought. I was wrong.
Yeah, that's great advice from the VP of Racing Sports over at Westgate. You can follow him at Vegas Murray on Twitter. You can follow the Superbook at SuperbookNV. John, thanks so much for the time. We'd love to have you on again. We appreciate you, brother.
Anytime, guys. Thanks for having me.
Great to meet you.
Thanks so much. Back-to-back awesome guests.
Wow.
We get Morgan Miller, who's still alive in Circa Survivor. We get John Murray telling us a little bit about his contest. I enjoyed talking to him, man. He was making me laugh. Good stuff. Back-to-back.
Unbelievable. I'm speechless right now after both of those guests. So obviously we've talked a lot about what happened on Thanksgiving, and I don't want to sort of beat a dead horse. Sorry if that's not an okay thing to say, but I guess I'm so interested to just tap into your mind really quickly one more time for the Dallas-Kansas City game, if you don't mind.
Of course, bring it.
Because I really value you as a friend and a handicapper, and I am curious a little more about the Dallas. Was it simply, I can't live with myself, I go against Mahomes? And so because what the Tony I know, if we're doing a show Wednesday night like we were last week, and you're telling me you like Dallas, Tony I know got a good line on that game early on. He probably had Dallas plus 3.5 or whatever it is. That's the most interesting thing to me about it. Even though I tell you all the time, my opinions change. And that morning I leaned Kansas City after liking Dallas on the show.
Yeah. I mean, it really was right up until the last minute, putting that pick in before the deadline. Kind of as Morgan described earlier, with a little bit of time left on the clock. But the final thing for me really was, can I live with myself if I go down here with the Cowboys? And I don't think I could have. Obviously, right now, I'd love to change that pick. I'd love to be telling you the story that Morgan just told you and own that and say that I had so much conviction in Dallas. I went with it. And, it didn't feel good. I will say that when I hit that button, I didn't hit it saying, this is the right move. This feels great. I hit it saying, I think this is the move that I need to make, even though I like Dallas. And there are times in this contest, you may have heard me say this before, where you have to make uncomfortable choices.
Yep.
And you have to take a team that doesn't feel great, that doesn't have a bullshit cushion, as we talk about. And I knew there was no bullshit cushion in that one, but it felt better to me than taking a dog in Dallas. It felt better to me than putting 2, on Philly. And so that's where we landed.
And
Stevie
fascinating.
Stevie Pan says that tush push fumble was a huge swing. That was the clip that's on our Twitter right now of me reacting to. Also very frustrating, by the way. Like the tush push works, 93% of the time or whatever for first downs. Like the one time the tush push fails and there's a fumble on it is when I'm rooting for the Eagles. So tough pill to swallow.
Well,
sure.
and the Bears, with everything going their way all the time, that turnover differential at plus 17 and the next closest team is at plus 9. I understand we could go down a rabbit hole on that particular component, but I mean, a lot of things go your way. I understand you're protecting the football. Anything else you want to get to on week 13 before we move on?
I don't think so. I think that covers it. Just historic, just absolutely historic. I feel like anybody that went down like I did in week 13, if this was their first year in Circa Survivor, they're coming back. They had a hell of a run. 900 or so people, 900 people exactly, get to Thanksgiving. Those people had a hell of a run and are probably already thinking about next year as I am.
Well, and it's interesting, right? Like the pain that I suffered losing whatever week I lost. Week 8, I think Bengals home to the Jets. That was sort of a brutal game, even though I knew they were going to lose the whole way. But yeah, I didn't have to sweat on Thanksgiving. And yeah, I enjoyed watching Thanksgiving and just betting on the games as I normally would. So it really is interesting. And for you, there's probably a little bit of an exhale, right? You know, you hear Murray talking about getting eliminated. Like, great, now I'm not going to worry about this, you know? So,
I don't want to talk too much about that because it's going to sound like sour grapes if I'm like, you know what, it's a good thing to be out because I can focus on this and that. But I'm a much better boyfriend. I'm a much better friend when I'm not in this contest. And if there's a silver lining of being knocked out, I'll put it that way. I can free my mind up a little bit to focusing on this show, growing a little more and some other things in my personal life, etc.
You're going to be the best boyfriend and husband of all time once we fucking win this thing one year, Tony.
Good call.
Real quick, before we move on, guest interviews are done. Before we move on to the Splash contest, I just have to say something to you right now because you know I'm a Patriots fan, right? And it's like I love just telling you what the Patriots aren't going to do and how they're so banged up on the lines because I think there's a little bit of emotional hedge going on there. But in a wide open AFC, like, yeah, do I think the Patriots can go play in San Francisco for the Super Bowl? Yeah, I fucking do. I think they're the best team in football right now. They're banged up, but it doesn't matter. They're good in all three phases. Head coaching matters, and I'm just really excited about my football team. I had to say that.
The best team in I didn't think I'm not disputing that notion because the way they're playing, they certainly could be. What I'm surprised at is that you said it and you acknowledge it because you've been cautiously optimistic this season about giving the Patriots too many flowers.
And yes, I'm always cautiously optimistic. And even though in my notes I say Rams still the best team in football despite losing to Carolina, and I do believe that. But what I said in another show I do this week, as an AFC fan, I mean, spin the wheel in the AFC, and you do not have to worry about the NFC player until you get to the big game. So I don't care how much better the NFC is. I don't care how good the Rams are or let me know who's there if the Patriots can find their way through this. And if they can beat either Buffalo or Baltimore, one of those two, I think you lose one more game. I still think you're in the 1 seed. You get a bye, you play one game, you're hosting the AFC Championship game. So I'm excited about my football team. I know we got to talk about the Splash contests as well.
Bring it.
All right. So our Splash contest that we were in, and thank you everyone at Splash Sports for keeping us in the game. All right. I'm going to tell you how we did on Splash last week. Here we go. So yes, we were on the Rams there. That was in the $5,000 NFL Survivor. We were out on the Rams. Also out in the pick 3 for the fans NFL Survivor. We were on the Chargers. They won. Broncos. They won. Eagles lost for us in our pick 3, Tony. But in the Splash 2,500 touchdown Survivor that began week 11, we got through, Tony, with Derrick Henry. And interesting, shout out Dollar Dave. I believe it was Dollar Dave who gave us Devon Achane. He told us to go with Achane. We were going to make the change, didn't make it. We stuck with Henry cashed, so did Achane, so that was good. But we are 46, I believe, 49 of 214. So, Tony, we got a chance in this one. I think I'm going to get back in the game in some capacity.
All right, and the end of the show, we're going to talk about who we're going to trust with that touchdown play in this one.
Exactly. So for everybody at Splash, we love all our friends at Splash. I know we got a little Splash commercial. If Mike Jones, roll it when you got it. Sports fans, don't miss out on the action right now at splashsports.com. Join leagues and enter massive contests with guaranteed multi-million-dollar prizes. Splash Sports brings the contest experiences straight to your phone in over 40 states with even more ways to play, compete, and win all season long. Finally, a way to play the games we know you love against your friends for real money. So get in the game and download now on iOS or Android, or play on the web at splashsports.com. So I don't root for the Philadelphia Eagles, and I didn't have money on the Eagles, and I found myself rooting for the Eagles for you in a way that I don't know if I've ever rooted for that football team. So I was rooting hard for you. I'm not trying. It's just hard for me to just move on to week 14. Last week was absolutely bananas. It's like I can't let it go.
It's funny you say that. I could have learned something from Morgan, because Morgan went with the team that she liked. I went with the Chiefs and the Eagles, the two teams who I hate the most. The Eagles are a very unlikable team. Do they not have the most unlikable head coach in football? Jalen Carter, not a very likable character. You know what I'm saying? Like, I trusted the teams that I hate the most, and I went down rooting for the Chiefs. I was at the 49ers Chiefs Super Bowl in the building with a 49ers future bet on the line, 30-1, I think. And Patrick Mahomes rips my heart out in the Super Bowl for the second time against the 49ers. I can't stand the Chiefs. I go down trusting the teams that I hate. Morgan gets by with her Dallas Cowboys. Incredible.
I just love that we have a survivor on the show on Dallas tonight. Murray was absolute gold. Should we get to the projections, Tone? And then we'll get into some of these games.
Yeah, these are the projections from Survivor Atlas. And we always say that Survivor Atlas changes these projections throughout the week, so they're not static. Keep that in mind. 51% projected on the Bucks, 18% projected on the Browns, 13% projected on the Rams, 7% on Seattle, 4% on Green Bay. We'll find out Saturday how close these are. But really what sticks out to me, Jason, is two things. Obviously, the Bucks at the top. Half the field projected to be on the Bucks. I will disclose that I had my eyes on the Bucks in this week all season long, and I never wavered from it. When you know Baker Mayfield's going to be healthy, you got to like the Bucks in that spot. But how about the 18%? We're going to talk about this game. The 18% of people that are going to trust the Cleveland Browns against the Titans. With 45 people left in Circa Survivor, we're projecting 18% of them on Cleveland with $18.72 million on the line. Trusting Shadur Sanders and the Cleveland Browns. My goodness.
I know that these numbers are very early and they can change. I would be surprised if there's 18% when all is said and done on the Cleveland Browns, but we'll see. We'll certainly be talking about that game. Shall we begin on Thursday night, Tony?
Let's do it. Dallas, Detroit. Dallas has won 3 straight. Detroit has lost 3 of their last 4. 24 people have Dallas available in Circa Survivor. 4 have the Lions available. 33 degrees in this one, 28% chance of precipitation. I highly doubt, Jason, any of the remaining 45 are going to fire away on this Thursday night game. You know, our guest mentioned earlier, Morgan mentioned that she doesn't like Thursday games. I don't know if you saw this, but I posted from our Last Men Pod Twitter account. If you include Thanksgiving, 25% of the entire Circa Survivor field was eliminated either on a Thursday or Friday night game this season.
Wow.
Keep that in mind. So we got this Thursday game here. Dallas has already ruled out their left tackle, Guyton, Penei Sewell, and Amon-Ra St. Brown. Questionable, but I don't think we're going to see Amon-Ra St. Brown. I feel like he's really more doubtful. He hasn't practiced all week. I'd be pretty surprised to see him in this one. Jason, this is the quintessential, really fun game to watch, but no thanks in Circa Survivor. Both of these teams need this game bad. They're on the outside looking in for the playoff race right now.
Morgan will not have Dallas available on Christmas at Washington. As we sit here 22 days away, you know, the other Christmas, you have Detroit at Minnesota, Denver, Kansas City. But, you know, we certainly that was part of your thinking too, keeping Dallas. So, you know, I'm firmly on this Cowboys bandwagon. If we talk about this game, I wouldn't touch it in Survivor, even if I was one of those 24. I think the Lions are in real trouble. Dan Campbell being the offensive coordinator / head football coach just isn't working. If you throw out the November 9th win for the Lions at Washington, Goff has been sacked 17 times in the other 5 games. I just feel like they're just chasing Green Bay all week on Thanksgiving. I don't know. I think it's close on paper, but I take the team with all the juice and the momentum. I from a Survivor standpoint, hard for me to like Dallas, but with a plus number by their name, still hard for me to look away.
Yeah, absolutely. And like I said, I don't think we need to spend too much time on that one because I'd be shocked if anybody was on either side of that game in Circus Survivor, but really gonna be fun to watch. Dolphins, Jets. Dolphins have won 3 straight and 4 of their last 5 quietly, huh? I think most people, you pull them off the street, would be surprised to hear the Dolphins have won 4 of their last 5 games. Jets have quietly won 3 of their last 5 games after starting the season 0-7. Jason, there's a stat out there. I know you've heard it before about Tua being 0-8 in games under 45 degrees. I heard that last year. I was trying to verify that. Is that stat still accurate? Has he played another game since then? He's 0-8-ish in games under 45 degrees. Doesn't play well in cold weather. Maybe someone in the chat can back me up on if that stat is still accurate or not. But the Dolphins did beat the Jets 27-21 earlier this season. 37 people have Miami, 45 people have the Jets if they want to deploy them in this situation. No practice today for Chris Olave or Alvin Kamara. Really no future value for these teams moving forward. Jason, could you convince yourself to use the Dolphins here in this spot in Circa Survivor to get on an island, or would you stay away?
No, I would stay away. But at 5-7, they're still playing competitive football. If I was a Dolphins fan, I would much prefer them bottom out than get to 8-9. But, stranger things have happened. They still seem to be playing for the coach. I don't know. I mean, 9-8, you never know, could get you in. So they still got some things to play for. That maybe would have me peek at them. But to answer your question, no way I can live with myself going out on either one of these teams. Jets still playing inspired enough to have me press the pause button.
Yeah, and Tyrod Taylor, I think he is an upgrade from Justin Fields. 3 touchdowns, 1 rushing, and 1 interception in his last 2 games. I think you're kind of getting what you expected out of him, sort of a higher floor than Justin Fields. Maybe not going to have the splash plays that Justin Fields has, but I think the Jets team looks better with him. Steelers, Ravens. The Steelers are 8-2 straight up and 7-3 ATS in their last 10 games against Baltimore. Some would say that Mike Tomlin has John Harbaugh's number. Very important game in that division in the AFC North. Ravens won 5 in a row before losing to the Bengals last week. Steelers have lost 3 of their last 4 games. 29 people have the Steelers available. 5 people have the Ravens available in Circa Survivor. Slight chance of rain. As we look ahead to future value, Steelers have games against Miami next week, but we talked about Miami's kind of sort of getting hot. Mm-hmm. And Cleveland week 17. I don't know if you'd trust them there in that spot. Ravens, check this out. At Cincy, I know you're not trusting them at Cincy after what we just saw on Thanksgiving. New England, no way you use Baltimore there. I can't imagine using Baltimore against the Packers or Steelers. So Steelers in week 18. So I feel like the opportunity to use the Ravens has passed. And for those 5 people left who have the Ravens, I don't know what they were thinking. Maybe there's a spot they like that I don't. Maybe they just don't trust the Ravens, period. And in that case, they're brilliant because the Ravens have let people down. Better to not use them the whole season than use them and go down with them. So maybe that's what they were thinking. But your thoughts on this game, Jason?
Well, I would say you said 5 entries have the Ravens available to them, right? The 5, same number of turnovers Baltimore had last week. That score would have looked a lot different. I think the Steelers are free falling. If I had the Ravens, you just pointed to lack of future value. Steelers were 4-1, now 6-6. I mean, is Aaron Rodgers going to play? Does it even matter? They claimed Adam Thielen off of waivers. Does that move the needle for you, Tony? But really. The Ravens are 6-6 too. So it's like, how much can you trust that team? But you pointed out they're at the Bengals next week. You look at that schedule. I think for Baltimore, they were in kind of a must-win last week, I think, even as leading the division. But this season, to me, for Baltimore, does hinge on this game. You're playing the Steelers tied. I mean, are the Browns have a shot at this division at 3-9? I mean, it's hilarious. But I really believe that Baltimore will get this done because I think Pittsburgh, the wheels have almost completely fallen off.
Jason, this is why I love co-hosting this show with you, and I couldn't do it without you. I appreciate you bringing up the Ravens turnovers last week, because you know what it made me realize? We kind of glossed over that game a little bit. We were so focused on the Eagles and the Chiefs because those were my entries. But that Ravens game, for the people out there who lost on that one was just as frustrating. Those damn fumbles, Lamar Jackson fumbles, 5 turnovers. My goodness, that was a tough one to watch.
Yeah, and forgive us for focusing on the games maybe that Tony was a part of, given that he's the host of this show and has built this thing. So forgive us. But yeah, I mean, in overall, that holiday was just I don't know. It's
I don't
just
know if we'll ever see it again.
unbelievable to have you be in that VSiN studio and have a conversation about, well, yeah, what's going to happen when 100 people win this fucking thing? And I'm like, yeah, I know, sitting at home. And now we're all just laughing. And
48 hours
I'm
later.
not making fun. I'm saying that
Yeah.
we were all drinking all of that juice.
Yep. 48 hours later, things change really, really quick in Circa Survivor. Let's go ahead and throw a little spot here for our friends over at Survivor Sweat. If you're in Circa Survivor, you have to go to the marketplace at survivorsweat.com. You can shop for entries that other people have registered or sell a percentage of your entry. Get knocked out early and suffering from FOMO? Head over to survivorsweat.com today and see which entries are available for sale.
I know I always like talking coming out of the break, but you know what I kept thinking all weekend, Tony? I kept thinking, I was like, if Tony just got through Thanksgiving this weekend and his path, I was like, that's what I couldn't stop thinking about is like, oh, now we got this board ahead of us and we're not alive for this weekend. You know what I mean? For maybe a little, that's what I was thinking.
For what it's worth, I had the Chargers, so I'd still be alive if my Thanksgiving teams had gotten me through. And this is the pain of Circa Survivor when you get this close to the end, because how can I not, as these weeks go on, like I said, I would have been on Tampa this week. If Tampa wins, how could I not have the thought, thinking back to Thanksgiving, if only the Eagles hadn't let me down, I'd still be alive. And now it's week 15 at this point. That's the torture. I'm almost rooting for Tampa to lose this week so that I don't have to finish this season knowing if that one little change had happened on Thanksgiving, I'd still be alive.
Yes. Well, and as I've told you, I continue to sort of map out what I would do. Mm-hmm. Right. And in this, so yeah, I would have been out. Just Murray was saying he would have been on Philadelphia. I could tell you a number of different ways I would have been out. So it is what it is. You made it far. You alluded to that Thanksgiving morning, but I know we got to keep it moving.
All right. This is the game. This is the game that Survivor Atlas is projecting 51% of the field to be on. All 45 people have the Saints available. 38 of the 45 have Tampa available. 18% of chance in this. 18% chance of rain in this one. The Bucs' future value is interesting to me because this is how they finished the season: Saints, Falcons, Panthers, Dolphins, Panthers. They're going to be favorites in all those games, and they are starting to get a little healthier. Mm-hmm. They got Chris Godwin back, so I just want to say that as much as you heard me say I love the Bucs in this spot, there is a great argument not to use them here because they're projected to be so high owned and they do have future value moving forward. So if there's anybody alive in Circa Survivor right now, you don't need my advice because I'm out of it. But I would just say take a look at those future weeks. Make sure that you're feeling very comfortable and you don't need Tampa going forward before you fire away with the Bucs here on this spot. Very nice spot against the Saints. Your thoughts on this one?
Yeah, this is smoke them if you got them. Last call for alcohol game for me. In terms of the future value, right? Like next week, yeah, that's a good spot, home to Atlanta, but at Carolina, at Miami, and even versus Carolina, you never know what the stakes are going to be in that game. So those games could be tricky despite your point of them being a favorite. But I think Mike Evans is also practicing this week. I mean, I just see Tampa Bay. It's good that they got through last week. Baker Mayfield was banged up, get through last week with a win. I just think it's all systems go. I think this could be the blowout on the board. So I think if you have Tampa Bay, I wouldn't get cute this week.
Yeah, and Kamara is not at practice today. Olave is not at practice today, so worth noting there as well. Colts, Jaguars. Colts have lost 3 of their last 4. Daniel Jones is playing with a fractured fibula, which sounds really bad, Jason. We saw those videos come out of practice last week where he looked like he was, tenderly dropping back on his leg. I don't understand why the Colts are playing him right now. It feels like, I'm not a doctor, but it feels like letting someone with a fractured fibula, decrease their risk a little bit, sit out a couple weeks might be a good idea, then bring him back for the playoffs. But maybe the Colts are worried about not making the playoffs at this point. As I said, they've lost 3 of their last 4. Jaguars have won 4 of their last 5. Trevor Lawrence last week looked a little better, but it was against a bad team. The week before that, man, those 3 interceptions against the Cardinals, 1 in the red zone, he looked absolutely terrible. Would you trust either the Jaguars or Colts in this spot with your Circa Survivor life on the line?
So to answer that question, this is my 10-foot pole game. No, I wouldn't go near it. I think there's a lot of future value there if you have some future value. If you have Jacksonville next week hosting the Jets, week 18 home to Tennessee, I think that game should matter. But the few that have Indy, you just can't use them here. Even if you like the matchup, you talked about Daniel Jones, and Anthony Richardson has a fractured face. Did you hear he was like warming up? He like broke an orbital bone in his face mid-October, warming up. And not as if he would be good, but I actually heard Daniel Jones on the microphone talk about, oh, I'm a football player, I play or whatever. You could almost see the underlying subtext was, I'm not even healthy enough to play. So I wouldn't touch this game. And just because Jones isn't healthy, it's not going to, Jonathan Taylor hasn't hit pay dirt in 2 weeks. Wouldn't surprise me if he does some things right and everything sort of maybe lean in Jacksonville. Now the Colts come back and maybe be who we thought they'd be. So I wouldn't go near this game.
I hate to throw this out there because it's kind of dark and it's kind of cynical. But if Daniel Jones was on a 7-year contract right now in year 1, would the Colts be handling this the same way?
Great question. It's a really interesting question. Oh, because it jives with what I said about seeing him on the microphone. You would never, as a football player, want to say that you wouldn't be in there. But I forgive me, I don't know who the backup is without Anthony Richardson being available. It's almost it's a very good point, Tony.
Yeah, is it that quarterback from UT? Is he still with the Colts? I think that's who it might be. But anyways, injuries just to be aware of this one. Jaguars left tackle Walker Little has a concussion. He wasn't at practice today. Josh Downs didn't practice for the Colts, and Sauce Gardner will highly likely be out of this one. 0 people actually have the Colts available. 31 have Jacksonville available in this spot. Can't imagine many people will be on them in Circa Survivor. All right, next up, it's that spot that Survivor Atlas said 18% were projected on the Browns. All 45 people have the Titans available if they want them. All 45 people also have the Browns available if they want them. This is by far the softest game remaining on the Browns schedule. Future value, it's not going to hurt you if you take the Browns here in this spot. Injuries to be aware of. Right guard Wyatt Teller didn't practice today. David Njoku limited at practice today. There's a little sideline spat between Shadur Sanders and Jerry Jeudy during the game last week. They said, hey, we've smoothed that over. We're doing okay. That makes me a little nervous, trusting a team like Cleveland when, 2 of the star players have a little beef on the sideline. Myles Garrett, 14 sacks in his last 5 games. That guy, oh my Lord, just having the season of a lifetime. Give him the Defensive Player of the Year award already. I would trust Cleveland in this spot, Jason. You remember me saying a couple weeks ago when we had Steve TA on, I think the Titans are just in a tier of their own at the bottom of the power rankings. I think the Raiders are a lot better than the Titans. I think the Titans are at the bottom. I think they've proven me right so far on that point the last couple weeks. And the Browns did have a little fight. That game against the Niners last week, and I lost money on this game because I had the Browns with the points. But I don't think the Browns played as poorly as the final score indicates.
No way. You're right.
That
one muff punt flipped that whole game.
Yeah, and then was it a kick return or a punt return as well as special teams play by the 49ers? I mean, that game, the Browns are not as bad as they looked. And so I would absolutely trust them here against the Titans in this spot.
So you've said for many weeks that you think people would consider Cleveland in this spot, and those who don't want to put their entry, $400,000 plus on Shadur Sanders. You're also putting it on Myles Garrett, right? 19 sacks on the year. The season record is 22. TJ Watt and Michael Strahan, 22 and a half, right? He could break it this weekend against Tennessee. So for me, I think it might be a decent spot if you want to zigzag, but I can tell you, Tony, if you want to talk anything about living with yourself the next day, if I had any other options, it's really difficult for me to trust Cleveland because the Titans would love to just win a game. They're not going to draft a quarterback next year, right? They win a game if they get the 2 pick or the number 3 pick, right? So I would stay away, but it's not going to surprise. But I like the Browns -3.5, if that makes sense.
It's tough for me to imagine the Titans like going on a long scoring drive in this one. Like I can see the Titans getting some points, maybe from a special teams play or something like that. But I just think that their offensive line in particular, is going to be completely overmatched by this Cleveland defense. So yeah, I would trust Cleveland here in this spot. Next up, we've got Commanders, Vikings. Commanders have lost 7 games in a row, although they did put up some fight in that Sunday night game. I will say that. The Vikings have lost 4 games in a row. 42 people have Minnesota available. 43 have Washington available. The Max Brosmer experiment did not go well last week for the Vikings. 4 interceptions in his first start. In his defense, it's tough to make your first start against Seattle and Mike McDonald in that defense. So that's rough. JJ McCarthy is going to be back for the Vikings this week. Any interest in either side of this one from a Circa Survivor perspective from you, Jason?
No, I mean, the JJ McCarthy news, I saw him questionable, so that perks my ears up a little bit. When I first saw this line, forgive the recency bias, but seeing how Washington competed, even though Jaden Daniels still not cleared for contact, I think it's still going to be Mariota. By the way, do you catch that? How all of a sudden after this many years now he wants to be Mariota? Mariota, you want us to roll the R? Mariota? What? Sorry. And then by the end of the game, I heard Tariq was like, Mariota. You know what I mean? Anyway,
love it.
Sorry, I digress. No interest in this game in the Circa Survivor Contest.
Yeah, I have trust issues with both of these teams. I don't trust them. I've probably lost money on both of these teams earlier this season, and I just don't know who they are. I don't know which teams are going to show up because we've seen them look good at times and look bad at times other times. So no thank you on that one. Next up, we've got Seattle, Atlanta. Seattle, hottest team in the NFL right now, Jason. They won 6 of their last 7. I guess you got to throw the Patriots in that argument as well.
Yeah, 10 in a row. That's fine.
Check this out on Seattle. Not too bad, huh? See how big he smiled when he said that? Check this out on Seattle. Their one loss in those last 7 games was the game against the Rams that, if you ask me, they actually played better than the Rams in that game. The turnovers just did them in. And then their only other 2 losses this season were by 4 points or less. So, Jason, in an NFL season where we see things happen all the time, like the Rams lose to the Panthers last week, the Bills put up a stinker to the Dolphins, Seattle hasn't had that game yet. They haven't been blown out yet. They haven't looked terrible at all. Their worst loss of the season was by 4 points. They've been in every game so far. I think they probably are the best team in football. Now, I don't know if I trust Arnold in the playoffs, so I'm not going to bet him to win the Super Bowl right now. But just based off the body of work from the regular season, I think Seattle is the best team in football. In terms of a Circa Survivor strategy, just keep in mind that they play at Carolina week 17. And this is a great spot, I think, to use Seattle because only 4 people have them left. So you're guaranteed to be on an island no matter when you use Seattle moving forward. So I like them in this spot against the Falcons, but I like them way more week 17 against the Panthers because we've talked about it on this show. There's not a lot of options week 17. So if I'm still alive in Circa Survivor, if I was, I love the idea of taking Seattle. It's on the road, but Seattle's a great road team against Carolina. Feel a lot better about that than some of the other options that other people are going to be forced onto that week.
Good stuff there. So last week, the Rams were unequivocally your best team in football. Now, after 1 week, it seems to be Seattle. Your points are well taken. Mike McDonald, 11-1 on the road. So I like this spot a little bit here. Sam Darnold, questionable with an ankle, but I think he'll go. I'd probably take the point 7.5 if looking at the spread. Atlanta is my least favorite team to handicap this season. We've heard that it's a theme of tonight. I said they leave me in the dark. 0 dark 30. That's hilarious. I didn't even intend to do that. But Kirk Cousins, the opposing quarterback for the Seattle defense, I think he's going to look very old on Sunday. If you like Seattle, did you say how many people have Seattle, Tone?
I sure did. 4 of them.
Okay. See, this to me, you said 4 people have Seattle and then 5 people had the Ravens. Is that correct? Or no, was that correct? The other, there was another small
yes, that is correct. Yep.
So those are a couple of spots where I kind of like, I like them in a similar way like Seattle. And we looked at that upcoming schedule versus the Colts, versus the Rams. At Panthers, I know they're good on the road, but I don't, that's still, Panthers to me have a little juice. They play a little defense. They can run the football. That week 17 game is not as appealing as this week if I have Seattle. And also too, you want to get through this week. So to me, I think potentially it's a potential somewhat of a smoke 'em if you got them. Maybe you take a couple drags and throw out the cigarette, but I would strongly consider Seattle if I'm those 4. I don't think they're great spots.
It sounds like I like that week 17 game more than you, which is fair. The only other thing I want to throw out there is they will have extra rest that week because they play Thursday the week before against the Rams.
Stuff.
So that's another thing to think about there. Also, no Drake London at practice today for the Falcons. FYI on that. Keep an eye on his status moving forward. Next up, I think this is going to be another fun one to watch. You've got the Bengals and the Bills, because these two teams are kind of trending in different directions. Like, since he's lost 4 of their last 5, but their last win was a big one because they got Joe Burrow back. And this team actually has a little bit of hype around it. Jason, tell me if you agree or not. I think the Bengals have a better chance of winning that division and making the playoffs than most people think, because they're 2 games back, but they still have a couple games against the division leaders. And there's a scenario where they can get the tiebreaker in that division. So whether or not you believe Cincinnati is alive for the playoffs, I think the guys in that locker room think that they're alive for the playoffs, and that makes them dangerous. So all that said, Cincinnati, I would say, is a team trending upward, if you will. And then you got the Bills, who are 2-2 over their last 4 games, haven't looked great outside of Josh Allen. And these two teams, like I said, are in opposite directions. I can't wait to watch this game from an NFL perspective. 40% chance of snow showers. 2 cold weather teams. I think this is going to be a lot of fun to watch this one. No thanks in Circa Survivor if I had the Bills available.
Yeah, I agree. No Survivor interest. It feels like the Bills are worse than 8-4. It's been a tough year in Buffalo, but still absolutely a contender in the wide open AFC.
Yeah.
I placed a bet on the Bengals to make it to the Super Bowl to win the AFC after they beat the Ravens, because why not? Why can't they win that division? I think they have to win every game. And in this tough year for the Buffalo Bills, it's like, oh, and now we have Cincinnati coming in. But no, we don't get Cincinnati with Flacco like the Patriots did. We get Joe Burrow. And Joe Burrow's been to a Super Bowl, right? And he would love to get in the way of Josh Allen, So I think it's going to be close. I like the points a lot. I just don't believe in Buffalo. It's not going to surprise me if the Bills flex here and kind of Cincinnati had that little sort of, uptick with getting Joe Burrow and they fall flat. It's not going to surprise me no matter how this game goes down. Wouldn't touch it. I don't know if T. Higgins is going to play. But the Bills at 8-4, they're going to face the Patriots off a bye week next week, right? So I think they're going to be really focused to make sure they get this one. But I think the desperate Bengals keep it close. I wouldn't go near it.
Injuries real quick. You mentioned Higgins. He was limited in practice today. Joey Bosa, they're calling week to week. He had a big play last week. Real important play in that game. Looks like he will probably miss this game, although that's not official yet.
All right, well, that does it for the 1 o'clock slate. Before we move on to the 4 o'clocks, let's have a word from our friends over at Race Oracle. Attention racing fans. If you want an edge at the track, you need Race Oracle. This subscription service uses advanced AI modeling built on over 200,000 historical races, crunching hundreds of data points from weather and track conditions to jockey history and speed ratings. Race Oracle gives you proprietary win percentages, Kelly betting strategies, and live odds tracking, covering every race in North America, plus the UK and Ireland, so you can bet around the clock with confidence. Don't guess, predict smarter. Subscribe today and start betting with data, not luck. Tone, I know I keep going back to week 13, but I believe there's obviously those who follow this contest closely have seen it on X, but there was one entry or one person or people with entries where they didn't have any of the favorites available to them, right, on Thanksgiving, and they just had to go dog. So they certainly weren't looking ahead, and it actually benefited them. Am I right with that?
So I'm glad you brought that up. There's kind of like I would say there's like there's different types of people who have made it to this point so far who took a dog. So either they're really good gamblers, they've got a good math brain, and they understand things like game theory, and they understand things like expected value, and they actually saw the value in an underdog, and they took the underdog, and kudos to those people because it was a brilliant move. And they had the guts to do it, because there's also a difference to knowing something is a good move and actually pulling the trigger and having the guts to do it. So kudos to those people. I do think there's a few people among the 45 left who maybe didn't plan ahead like perhaps they should have, and ended up in a situation where they were forced to take an underdog, as you're describing, for sure. I think there's a little bit of both. But did you hear this, Jason? Did you hear that of the 2 no picks, one of the guys who no picked was a Las Vegas local? He didn't know about the Thanksgiving deadline. As I've been speculating all season long, less than 1% of the field, there are some people who don't know the rules. Guess what? he used all his favorites. In other words, if he had met the deadline, he would have had to take an underdog, and he would have been one of 50 people alive in Circa Survivor.
I don't even know what to say.
Look at that. The 2 no picks right there. He was one of those 2, and he used all his favorites and would have had to take a dog and land in a beautiful spot. Now, what's his story? Is his story he didn't plan ahead because he didn't even know the Thanksgiving thing was a separate week? Judging by the fact that he missed the deadline, I'm going to go with that. But I also want to throw out another possibility. And I think this is the case with the guy who still has 4 entries left in Circa Survivor. And Jason, I want to say this to you. Just because you burned all of your favorites before Thanksgiving doesn't mean you weren't planning ahead.
Yep.
Because that could be your strategy. And I believe this was the case with the guy who has 4 left. He could have said, you know what? I'm going to intentionally burn all of my favorites. I'm going to take some dogs on Thanksgiving, all dogs on Thanksgiving. I'm going to maximize my chances of being alive on Thanksgiving and hope one of these 4 dogs win. Maybe I'll get lucky and 2 of these dogs win. No, all 4 dogs won. And Yahtzee, this guy hits the lottery with a strategy like that, if that was indeed intentional, and I think it was.
Unbelievable.
Incredible.
So,
and let me throw this out there too real quick, Jason. With so many underdogs having success on Thanksgiving, next Circa Survivor, do we see a little more of that? Because we talked about this year how like people didn't want to take Cincinnati week 1 because of how Cincinnati burned people week 1 last year. So this whole now shows like this, people are talking about game theory, and they're seeing how you can be rewarded when you make a bold move like that. I think it's going to be interesting to see. They're hearing Morgan's story. They're hearing Morgan come on this show and saying, I took an underdog and it worked for me. So next Thanksgiving, when people have underdogs and favorites to choose from, I wonder if a few more people get comfortable with the idea of taking an underdog on Thanksgiving.
There are certain things that I want to say to you off camera, and I will reserve the right to do so. All right, 4:00 games. Denver Broncos, Vegas Raiders. Broncos -7.5. So I'll start on this one if you don't mind.
Yeah.
Broncos 10-2, fighting for that number 1 seed. I mean, every week they just win lucky. If for those of you that got through on the Broncos, I say this every week. Great, you know, and like even if Max Crosby goes off and Ashton Gentry finally breaks out and Brock Bowers catches 15 balls, like Broncos going to find a way to win. You know, somehow, some way. Commanders 2-point conversion could have beat them. Nope, still 10-2. Yep. But the Denver schedule is brutal. It finishes versus Green Bay, versus Jacksonville, at Kansas City, versus the LA Chargers. I think this one is a must. How many people have Denver available? Talk to us about that side of it, because they ain't losing to this Raiders outfit.
3 have Denver available. I think it's a fantastic spot to use them. You just leave yourself a little thin on Christmas, but are you really going to take Denver in an underdog role against the Chiefs on Christmas anyways? So I do see value to saving them. God forbid there's an injury to Patrick Mahomes or something like that between now and Christmas. But if I had Denver in this spot, I would feel very comfortable against this Raiders team. You heard me say earlier, I think the Titans are the worst team in football. I think the Raiders are probably the second worst team in football. And to your point, that tough schedule moving forward for Denver, all potential playoff teams, that's rough right there. So yeah, smoke them if you got them on Denver, as long as you have some options moving forward on Christmas. Jason, I did think this was interesting too. I looked to see the remaining 45 people and who's got what available for Christmas. Everybody has one of the 3 favorites. Nobody amongst the 45 left has burned all 3 favorites on Christmas. I thought that was interesting.
Well, I hope they have some dogs, because the dogs are barking on the holidays in 2025.
They sure are so far, man. Green Bay, Chicago. 10 people have the Bears left. 3 people have the Packers left. Future value-wise, how about Green Bay week 18 against this Vikings team? I think that's something to put in your back pocket and consider. Matthew Golden limited in practice today. He's the Packers receiver. Odunze, the Bears receiver, and Kyle Monangai didn't practice for the Bears. Bears team has won 9 of the last 10 games. Packers are 11-1 straight up and 10-2 ATS in their last 12 against the Bears. And the one straight up loss was a game where Jordan Love and Christian Watson both got hurt like in the second quarter. So what I'm trying to say there is the Packers have absolutely owned the Bears lately for sure. And from a matchup perspective, I think the big question here, Jason, is can the Bears replicate the success that they had on the ground on Thanksgiving against this Packers defense? Packers defense is average against opposing running backs. They've allowed 110 rush yards per game. That ranks 16th in the league. Last couple games, just to give you a little snapshot, they did hold the Lions running backs to under 4 yards a carry. Vikings as a team rushed for 4.7 yards a carry against Green Bay. Good, but not great. The week before that, Tyrone Tracy had 4.6 yards a carry against this Green Bay team. The Bears, Ben Johnson was using these sort of exotic blocking schemes against Philly. And as someone that was on Philly that week, I'm like, oh, they can clean this up at halftime. Look at the tape, get this fixed. They sure couldn't, even with all that talent on their defensive front. Can the Bears push around the Packers in this game? I think the answer is yes. The Bears can win. The answer is no, the Packers can win pretty easily. Your thoughts?
I mean, more free hot dogs if Ben Johnson takes his shirt off again this week, or no? Was that just like a one week thing? Just like the Broncos, I look up every week and the Bears win or it's close, So in terms of looking at the point spread, I probably gobble up those points. So Bears lose week 2, 52-21 at Detroit. You know what I mean? And Ben Johnson's your head coach. You go 0-2. They've won 9 of 10. I think they're number 1 seed. I really like what I saw out of Green Bay last week. I just don't know how consistent they can be. Right. So this is a survivor show. It would scare me. It's not going to surprise me if the Bears keep it close, make some magic. This is one of those, the cliche of, division game or whatever. You could throw it out most of the time. This has that feel for me. So I don't go near it.
Absolutely. Before we move on to Rams Cardinals, how about this comment here? What an effing joke. Every favorite loses on Thanksgiving. F this joke. David, you took the words out of my mouth. As someone who went down on Thanksgiving, it sounds like you may have as well. So we'll have to lick our wounds and come back better for it next year. Rams Cardinals. As Jason said last week, I said I thought they were the best team in football. Moved them down to number 2 on my power rankings. Patriots are 3rd, by the way, Jason.
I get it.
Rams are 13-3 straight up over their last 16 games against Arizona, though they did split last season. These two teams, when they played, they each won 1. Future value-wise, we've got Atlanta and Arizona, weeks 17 and 18 for the Rams. Not the best matchups, but considering it would be slim pickings, I would love to have the Rams in my pocket still with 2 weeks to go in Circa Survivor. And as I said, 8 people have the option to try to save him for that. Marvin Harrison Jr., heel injury, not at practice today. Keep an eye on his health. Jason, would you trust the Rams here in a divisional spot against the Cardinals?
Absolutely. I think this could be the blowout on the board. The Rams are pissed. We anoint them the best team in football. They still are for me. Lose at Carolina. The Panthers had 2 fourth-down conversions for touchdowns. Rams did some good things in that game. I just think they handled Jacoby Brissett and got, right? Jacoby's going to be starting. Am I accurate there? Okay.
Yep.
And last year, I think, forgive me if you alluded to this final score, but the Cardinals beat the Rams at home 41-10. That was September 15th, right? Stomped them. I'm sure McVay's reminding them of that, and also that number 1 seed, not as tight a grip. Now you're both 9-3, and this schedule, as we look at it, right? This to me, I understand week 18 versus Arizona, but the next 3 games present different challenges. And this one, I love the Rams here to bounce back after that loss at Carolina.
Yeah, and if things do get sideways in this game and you find yourself in Circa Survivor on the Rams in the 4th quarter and the game is, say, 17-17, don't you feel good knowing that you had Matthew Stafford? I know that he fumbled last week. That was an ugly look. But Matthew Stafford against Jacoby Brissett, I think you're feeling pretty darn good having the Rams in a tight game if that happens in the 4th quarter. Next up, Sunday Night Football, Texans-Chiefs. 24 people have the Texans available. 12 have Kansas City available. You got to think people that have Kansas City available aren't using them here. They're saving them for week 16 against the Titans or for that Christmas spot that we talked about against the Broncos. I also don't think anybody would use the Texans here in this spot. They've got spots against the Cardinals and Raiders coming up the next 2 weeks. would be stunned if either of these teams were used. The Chiefs, for what it's worth, are 3-0 against the Texans, dating back to 2020. Probably the only relevant game in there is last season when the Chiefs were 3-point favorites and beat this Texans team 27-19. Any sniff at this game in Circa Survivor for you, Jason?
No, but quickly, if you'll indulge me to just talk to you about this game, because I'm excited about it. Is this the spot where Kansas City just flexes, right? But for me, it's like Houston has a lot of hype right now with good reason. Like 7-5, won 4 in a row, 3 of which were against AFC playoff teams: Jacksonville, Buffalo, Indianapolis. Why can't they go beat a 6-6 Chiefs team that can't win a game unless it's a blowout? I like the matchup a lot for Houston here. CJ Stroud, another week back under center after being out for a while. He does make a difference, far more accurate than Davis Mills. It's not going to surprise me if Kansas City wins, but I'm going to look hard at the Texans in the sports book, just as I did last week at Indianapolis.
Yeah, I think this week 14 slate is a good one, Jason. I think I'm as excited about this game as you are, and I've said this a couple times on the show already. Great NFL game, not so much for Circa Survivor, and I think this game is absolutely the epitome of that. Last game here on the board, Eagles-Chargers. Let's throw this into that category too. Not a great Survivor game, but wonderful Monday Night Football game to watch. 36 people have the Eagles available should they decide to use them. 3 have the Chargers available. I think the Eagles folks are probably going to save them for week 15 against the Raiders in a great spot. Jim Harbaugh, not John. Jim Harbaugh said that Omarion Hampton is on track and looking good to play in this game. They've missed him immensely, so he'd be their rookie running back. They'd be really happy to have him back. Herbert has this hand injury to his non-throwing hand. I think we're all expecting him to play, even though he's going to miss some practice because it is his non-throwing hand. Who knows how it's going to affect him, taking snaps under center and things like that. But I think it's going to be interesting to see if the Eagles bounce back in this spot. A little extra rest, time to get things right. I can't prove this, but I think there's some stuff going on in that locker room. We heard earlier this season with those wide receivers are pretty unhappy. The Eagles lose 3 in a row in that market with those fans that were already booing their team last week at home. Things are going to get real interesting in that city. What are your thoughts on this one, Jason?
Well, this game is so much more interesting to me, the fact that Philly lost last week. This matchup looks weird on paper. These teams haven't faced since 2021. It's like Philly versus the Chargers, Eagles-Chargers. Just feels kind of funny. If you have Philly home to Vegas next week, unless I'm mistaken. So that certainly is a spot. If you have Philly, I know you alluded to some other spots, but I just feel like in this league of parity, there's more parity than ever. There's so many crucial games between teams teetering around 500 or in division contention, right? Like the Chargers handled the Ravens last week, but off a bye prior game, they lose 35-6, I think, at Jacksonville. So I just love this league right now. The Chargers-Broncos game in week 18, like that game, I think is going to matter quite a bit, but I think if the Chargers can win here, I think they can. Omarion Hampton, that moved the needle. I didn't know about that. That moved it quite a bit, but I don't think you look at anything from Survivor standpoint, but this is fascinating, this game. Flip a coin for me.
And Jason, this is going to be a great transition into our Splash Sports touchdown contest. But given, maybe not. I was going to say, given how bad the Eagles defense looked against the run last week, maybe we get cute and take Omarion Hampton as our touchdown scorer in the splash pool. But I don't think I like that once I say it out loud, because a guy coming back from an injury, he might be on a pitch count. Maybe he only gets 10, 12 carries.
Well, so, and we can also look at the market. That market on Omarion Hampton, Tony, could be 2-1 being a touchdown scorer, where some of the guys that I maybe throw your way may be favorites. So you transitioned us there. We'll go there. So the only contest we are still alive in, the Splash $2,500 touchdown Survivor week 11. As you saw, we got through with Derrick Henry. Didn't change that pick. 49 out of 214. So a couple options, Tony, that I'll just throw your way. James Cook, home to Cincinnati for Buffalo. Even Josh Allen in that game, right? I think potentially
we got Allen still. We still got Josh Allen available.
Still got Josh Allen available. Okay. And I think Jonathan Taylor, who hasn't scored in 2 straight weeks, law of averages. I kind of like Jonathan Taylor maybe to get it in. We talked about Daniel Jones being a little bit banged up. Maybe that limits them at the goal line and Jacksonville shuts him out. But I think we have some options. And Tony and I will discuss it offline, I think, and lock that in. But I think we have some options. Hey, if you want to go crazy with Mario and Hampton, but I think with only 49 guys available, I think we got to go chalk, baby.
Yeah. And certainly if other people have suggestions of who you think we should take or who you'd take if you were in our situation with 49 people left in this Splash Sports pool, let us know who you'd roll with, knowing that you can't use them again later this season. It is sort of the Survivor rules in that way. So
before you get us out of here, I'm just going to interrupt you and say, you have done an incredible job all season being, in a lot of ways, the face of this contest, right? You have gambling Twitter, you have MMA Twitter. But if you have the Circa Survivor Contest, which is growing and growing and being enormous, you have built this thing into a little bit of a monster, right? And obviously being involved in it and then making it to Thanksgiving, which not a lot of people even make it this far. You're, 95% of the pool out, including me, well before Thanksgiving. You make it there. You're on camera going out. Just hats off to you. I think we're only scratching the surface where this thing is going to go. And I just want to shout you out for being here, doing almost 2 hours tonight. Had to just be a bananas last couple months.
Yeah, it's been wild, man. It's been wild. You talk about this thing growing. I'm excited to see what the guarantee is going to be next year. I'm excited to see how many people you see me already starting to transition to next year now that I'm out. And on the Saturday night show that I do, the Saturday Night Sweat show, we had a couple guests on and I asked them, how many entries do you think there are going to be in Circa Survivor? And one of our guests said he thinks, I can't believe it, Brett Ritchie, who was still alive and went out on the Rams, by the way. He got through Thanksgiving. He said he thinks we could hit 35 million. I think that's high. I can't get on board with that. I think that's a little too optimistic, but that's getting me excited knowing that smart people are projecting the number to be that high next year.
And everyone who's been eliminated, all they say is, yeah, well, I just need more entries next year. So it is the finest form of crack cocaine, is it not? The Survivor Contest? I wouldn't shock.
We had some great guests on earlier today, so rewind this episode and listen to it again. If you're just tuning in late, we had on John Murray from the Westgate to talk about his contest. He was a blast. We also had Morgan Miller, who is still alive, one of the 45 left in Circa Survivor. Good luck, Morgan. We're rooting for you. Good luck to all 45 people who are left in Circa Survivor. We'll see you next week.
Outlast the crowd. Only the strongest left now. Who's ready to win?